Meijane here. Thank you for joining me. We are going to talk about shame, and it really matters how much interaction we have. So when I say we are going to talk about it, I mean that this video is just the beginning of the conversation, not the end all be all. We can't expand that way, right? I mean, expansion takes disagreement and, whatever. So you get what I'm saying. I think so. All right. So I want you to consider three things in order for us to get into this conversation about shame. I want you to think about what you want for your children. And by your children, I mean like the children of the world, right? And of course, if they live at your house, consider those children in particular. And if you teach or you are an administrator in a school or anywhere, or you plant gardens of children, whatever, think about those children. What do you want for your children? Number two, are they making any mistakes in those areas where you want wonderful things for them? And thirdly, what are you doing to get them to do better and better, right? To get them to expand, to create an environment of expansion for them. And I want you to think about those things. At least one of those things, right? And so what I want for all children, but in particular, including my own children, is I want them to feel empowered. I want them to see their power and act like it, and so I have promised myself, and I'm sure my children, that I will not talk about all their business every time I say, talk about kids and so on. It's very tricky because they are my teachers. But I want empowerment for them. And when I see them make mistakes is when I hear about a situation where someone's being nasty. And I have one child in particular who is so forgiving, which is such evidence of a beautiful soul, right? It's a beautiful thing. However, it's very challenging for me, when my child is being forgiving and taking all of these blows from, classmates, friends. That really gets me, I'm just like, I have a really hard time containing all of the things I know are the worst things I could say as a response to this child who is being open with me and doesn't have to tell me anything about her business. And my burning desire, I don't know, maybe both, is to say like, you should tell her this and you should do that and nobody should treat you like this and you should have. As I remember being just like my precious one who I'm speaking of, growing up, and even today, like Just yesterday, I learned how to not do, yeah, it's like, I don't think I'm ever finished learning about how to not let people take advantage of me, or how to stand perfectly in my power. It's not like, something happens and I'm like, bam, bam, with like the perfect response. But really, it's like, that's exactly what I expect out of my kids. Every time, which makes no sense, which is why we have these conversations, because we do these things that are really weird, inappropriate, out of line, and not because we're bad, but because we're just cycling what was done with us and what we're used to and what we're familiar with. And there's so much of it. It's not like every moment before you speak, it's like, think before you speak, yes, but you can't process an entire systematic failure, societal outbreak of horror, every moment before you engage with your kids. So that's what this conversation is about. So what I'm doing to get my kids there more often than not, unfortunately, which is why I need you as much as you need me, is that I'm like shaming them into doing what I know is good for them. Now, I want to turn your attention to what's called the emotional guidance scale. It's an emotional ladder. And at the top of this ladder, and it's not like, somebody made it up to have fun, it's a real thing. It pretty much organizes, major emotions, right? So at the top of the ladder are the high emotions, the good feeling emotions, and they're in order from good to really good to super good. And at the bottom are the bad feeling emotions. And they're organized in the same way. They're, kind of not great, to bad to horrible. And guess where shame is? Horrible. One of the lowest vibrating emotions that exists. It's one of the worst feelings you can engage with is the feeling of shame. And this is where we cycle around. This is kind of where we live often when we try to get our children to do something that actually requires them to be at the top of the emotional ladder. You cannot be empowered from the bottom of the ladder. That's the opposite of empowerment. But I want my kids here, so I drag them down and then that's it. And oops, I don't know why they're not there. That's why. It's like if you were a coach to your kid who's a runner and you want them to run fast, and you're spending all your time because you are a good parent, and you carry around this big stick and you just whack them in the legs to make them go faster. The legs that they need to be perfectly intact in order to accomplish the goal of running the race as fast as they can. And that's exactly the perfect comparison to what we do when we default into these low vibrating tactics to get our children to be what they already are, which is great. Instead, all the things that we see them doing over and over and over that belong up there at the top of the emotional ladder, that they're good at, that is part of their personality, that is a strength, that is something they're growing in and growing in and growing in, all of those things. That's what we should be reminding them of. Instead, what did you do well? Well, let's see. You're having a really good attitude about that situation. That's a tough situation. You're powerful. Because that's the truth, right? The truth is that if your child is engaging with some bullying at school and they're talking to you about it, there are a million good things happening there. There are a million powerful things happening there. Instead of berating them or teaching them or coaching them, and I put all of these in quotes, because think about the things that you do to get them where you want them to be and you see them being. Do they reside at the top of this ladder? Do they come out of high feeling emotions, good feeling emotions? Do they produce good feeling emotions? Do they trigger good feeling emotions? Because you can't produce them, but do they trigger good feeling emotions? Or do they trigger bad feeling emotions? I mean, look at your kid's face while you engage with them. And this process of emotion coaching, which I train on, is key here. You know, there are a series of things that are helpful in order to keep our children at the top of that ladder, because it doesn't just mean that you're like, someone was bullying you, well, that's great. You know, that's not what I'm saying. But there are a million things you can say in response. Choose the things that will keep them clear about who they are, what tools they have in them that are ready to use, that you can see. Do that first. Thank them. Thank them for being open with you. And we'll get to that. But enough. We'll stop here. Thank you so much for listening, for being here with me, for engaging with me, because I know that you're going to comment and share and whatever the heck is available for us to really promote this extremely important and powerful conversation. I'll see you soon.